Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. We have someone on the show today that we've been waiting to get on the show for 3 to 4 weeks. He's finally sliced up some time. We have Mr. Jeff Bodzewski, and Jeff is the partner and CEO at Wool & Water, and he has an amazing business. He is a passionate retail advocate. He has passion with something that they built called extended retail, and we're going to get into that momentarily. But let me tell you a little bit about Jeff. He's been a trusted counselor for brands including Google, Boston Beer, Unilever, Lyft, Discover Financial, and AT&T. He has been written up in the Harvard Business Review. They've profiled him before. I'm super excited to have Jeff on the show today to talk about Wool & Water. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Andy, thanks for having me. I'm excited we could make this happen.
Me too. This is super cool what you're doing at Wool & Water. When we spoke about it, I just couldn't wait to get you on the show. I have so many questions for you that our viewers and our watchers and our listeners are going to want to listen in for the entire show because we're going to cover it all. Let's pull the lens back just a little bit, Jeff. Let's tell everybody what Wool & Water is all about, and then we're going to get into it.
Absolutely. Wool & Water was launched late last year, really as the first extended reality agency. And what that means is that we're the first ones to dedicate our whole company to shoppable augmented reality, virtual reality, smart technology, et cetera. And really the key there is when people hear AR and VR, it has been a gimmick, it's been entertainment, gaming, et cetera. Every thing that we saw last year has made us believe that this is the next sales channel, and we're throwing everything we can at it.
This is super cool. I've been on your website. It just makes all the sense in the world. For those people that maybe aren't really sure how AR or VR, augmented reality or virtual reality kind of fits in sort of to the sales cycle. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about how that all works because you're on the cutting edge. This is a first to market. So we have to explain it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that your viewers may be shocked to know is that they have probably been using augmented reality for the last year or two. They've used it in Snapchat filters. They've used it when they go onto IKEA and try and see what the couch looks like in there. The adoption is incredible. We actually just are about to release a survey, 1,000 US consumers, that 68% of them identified something they'd used either AR or VR for in the last 30 days. And that number blew us away. It really is something I think that's become mainstream. And as you see people who are either unable or reluctant to go into stores, but they're still abandoning their cart because they're not confident in the look, the fit, all these things. We're hoping to give them that confidence, whether it's buying a new car or the next shirt that they buy.
I love it. I love it. And obviously you're helping brands create a new sales channel and generate more revenue by really putting the digital consumer experience at the forefront. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's say a brand reaches out to you, Jeff, and they say, hey, what can you do for me at Wool & Water? How does that sort of discussion go at this point in time?
Yeah, it really starts in the most basic form of understanding what their business and marketing goals are. One of my favorite things about extended reality is that it enhances not only the physical storefront and what you can do in store to bring more experiences into it, but it does enhance online. So that conversation is focused around who their customer is. It's a different recommendation for whoever they're targeting, either the products. It's all about where they get their leads from, why they're not converting. Is it confidence, inventory, and basically what other assets they have? It's really incredible to talk to. And a great example is an automotive company we've been talking to. And they didn't necessarily realize the sheer power of the design elements and being unable to understand kind of the mythology that the designer created the interior because it was inspired by a rock as it went into the water and the ripples. I mean, these are things that are such great stories that used to be limited to words or static videos, but now we're able to actually, whether it's on the car that they're looking at in the lot or just from their couch, understand and appreciate these details.
That's amazing. So, obviously it's about storytelling, like you mentioned, the consumer behavior. There's so much data and science behind all of that. Now you've been able to take all of that at Wool & Water and make a wonderful platform, a wonderful offering for the clients that you have now beginning to really understand what this AR and VR is all about. Let's stay with the car dealership just for a minute.
Absolutely.
Let's say I have a car dealership, and let's say I reach out to Wool & Water. How does the conversation go? Tell me what you can do for me to help my consumers understand what my offering is better, what it looks like, and perhaps what that sales cycle looks like.
The first thing, of course, is just to understand which model they're interested in. Do they have the commitment to help us with the right imagery, with the right resources, the narrative, et cetera? And usually what we find as the single biggest closing deal is as you look at the tech that we build out, and we're fortunate enough to have the tech partner behind us that Oculus chose to do the demos for Best Buy and such. So we got some good stuff, but really the selling point is that at any point during the viewing, it's great to learn about the mythology of the car, the fuel savings, how you can in real time change it. But in one click, you can either be directed to the dealer itself, or in other industries, of course, you can buy the product, because we've seen far too many of these AR gimmicks that essentially force you to close out of the web browser, jump into this, remember the URL, re-sign in. That's an issue. So again, it is one touch, and you either have a car in your driveway, or maybe you have a new box of chocolates.
Jeff, I love it. I love it. This is so fascinating. Now, many people watching the show, maybe when they think about VR, virtual reality, or augmented reality, they think that you need to have the glasses or the goggles on. However, that's not the case, and that's not really where this sales cycle is going. So explain that a little bit for the people that kind of think about the glasses with augmented or virtual reality.
The last 12 months or so has really just accelerated this dramatically. The once maligned QR code I was recommending it to clients 10 years ago with very minimal adoption. Now menus and bills and all sorts of things are triggered. The great thing is that 96% of the people in the US, probably far more who are watching the show, have AR already on their phone. Any modern Android, and especially iPhone, produced over the last 2-3 years, open the camera, scan the QR code. No apps to download, nothing else to do other than to sit back and hopefully find something that's both of use and interest. Now, you touched on VR, and I think that's something that might be a little bit more bleeding edge than cutting edge. What people don't realize is that right now, at the beginning of 2021, there's roughly 35 million VR headsets in the US. Now, most of them don't really work to the way that we want, but the game changer really happened last year with the Oculus Quest, something that Facebook sold out of and exceeded all their demands. If you look through there, you're starting to see just a trickle of things beyond gaming, and it's typically limited to entertainment. Our philosophy is the same as you scroll on your phone through different apps, different ways to buy, et cetera. In 6 to 12 months, you're going to scroll through any of these VR sets, and you're going to see retail. You're going to see your favorite athletic wear manufacturer on there. And you're not just going to go buy your next parka at a retailer anymore, their website. You're going to put that on, select it, and you're going to be taken to the foothills of the Himalayas to actually have that same experience of trying on the parka, comparing it to others, having confidence. And again, the most important thing is just hitting right up there that you want to buy it, and it's going to show up a couple days later. That's the exciting part to me, is it's bridging that whole experience there. And it's sooner than people think, but still probably 6 to 12 months away.
Wow, that's so exciting. So I can put a suit on, or I can have a suit with a certain tie, and I can put myself perhaps at a wedding or at an event.
Absolutely. Going back to our automaker example, one of the companies we've been talking to, as people are reticent to go actually onto the dealer lot, yet everyone loves the test drive, right? That's the highlight of everything. So by going through an actual VR experience, you're not just going around the 6-block radius that your dealer wants you to in a way that imitates the feel, the performance, the look. I mean, looking around fully at the interior, you can drive the Nuremberg track. You can whip around the Daytona track. And we're even talking to them about ways where you feel like sitting next to you is a performance race car driver, an F1 driver who's giving you some tips on how to actually use the car that with a touch of a button you can buy.
Wow, that is so interesting. And you know, Jeff, what you're doing at Wool & Water is really remarkable. I know you're a data guy. I want to talk about actionable consumer insights, because
yes.
Let's talk about sort of the data that underlays this offering that you have in this platform. It's very interesting, and maybe you could touch on that just a little bit.
Really, I think, hidden value of all of this, it's cool tech, it's experiences that will drive sales, grow cart size, etc. But there's tremendous power for the first time to effectively see how a person shops in the real world. And that's traditionally been limited. If you think about going and buying a new pair of shoes, maybe there's a salesperson there who then tells their boss, that, you know what, Andy looked first at the sole. And a lot of people are doing that now. Probably gets lost somewhere, etc. What's so exciting about this is that whether it's looking at how people shop a shoe, how they look around at a virtualized store, because it mirrors the physical environment and actually interacting with products, it's tremendous data, not only individually, where I know that Andy really likes a certain color of shoe, so I'm going to serve him more of that color shoe. But you start to aggregate things and you realize, wow, the first thing that people do, 87% of people when they're holding the shoe, turn it left. So is our marketing reflecting that? Is our R&D reflecting that all of a sudden the first thing people do, as frankly I do, is look at the bottom of the shoe to see if it's going to leave a cool track when you're walking through the snow? All these things, again, that have never really been possible in the physical world, yet every data marketer on the digital side can tell you about the heat map and where your eyes are going, the expression. Again, it's just a great way to bridge these worlds.
That's incredible. So in the example of the suit, and I put a tie on, and I'm in this world, and I put myself at a wedding, and I decide that, you know, I want to try different red ties on, just for sake of example. And then other people are trying suits on, and their preference is a red tie, to keep things very simple. Then your data will tell the retailer, if you will, that, you know, your best combination is the blue suit and the red tie. Make sure you give different types of red ties, because that's going to be a big seller. And this way you're helping the retailer sell more, because you understand the behavior of the customer.
Yeah, you hit on, I think, our biggest value online is that the number one barrier for e-com has always been, how do you get people to buy more? I mean, the impulse buy is famous in physical, but even the best of efforts are so hard to do online. Amazon probably does it best with you might also like. We are building that into the exact same platform. So yes, not only will it tell you that this is the best red tie to go with it, but we're very deliberately going to maybe steer you towards some other complementary products that will grow that basket size. Andy, I think you'd look great with a red pocket square. Have you thought about maybe looking at more of a plaid shirt? Again, things that still make sense for your preferences and the data that you're providing, but also get you to think, well, yeah, I really do like this look. So maybe I will add that one more thing to the cart that on a website or mobile app you would not have done.
I love it. And you call it the you might also like. And right now, we see that when we're on Amazon, after you finish your shopping cart experience, they say, hey, you might also like this, or you might also like that. And that leads me to a question that I've been wanting to ask you, because obviously it has to do with data. We have so much data out there that the algorithms and the artificial intelligence can tell us and knows what we want. And that's a good thing in my mind, because I love getting the you might also like, because it knows really what I want. So how scary is it, with regard to having so much data out there? I think it's wonderful, because I love being told what I need, and they're probably right most of the time. But in your world, is that a scary thing? Or do people say to you, hey, Jeff, how scary is it with all this data going out there, and how do we handle that?
It's something I have said for years. It is all about the perceived value. I teach a graduate course at DePaul University, and once we get into the digital and the data mining side of it, first thing I ask them is, how many of you are comfortable with a company or brand having your cell phone number? And almost no hands go up. I don't want that. It's too personal. Then you change it a little bit. How many of you would feel comfortable with that if you got a 50% off coupon the next time? Nearly every hand goes up. I think the key there is that companies just have to be transparent. They have to be able to act on the data. It's incredibly frustrating if you go through these experiences, you've checked out that red tie, you have bought 10 red ties before that, and by God, this retailer is still trying to get you to buy that blue tie. I think too that there has to be a pretty, I would call it transparent opt-out as well. There's increasingly companies, some who are spurred by the regulations in Europe, others who are looking over to California, who are a little bit more, I think, progressive in tiering out which data that you can sell or which they can capture on you. Obviously, the number one is, can we sell it? And when you say no, you still get other things. Can we use it to remarket specifically to you? And if you say no, then basically you're left with demographic information, but you can't. There's too many data breaches. There are too many scary things happening out there. Phone to, as you and I have this conversation, I'm probably going to be mysteriously served new ads around autos and red ties and things. You have to take the mystery out of it. And if you provide enough value, people will absolutely opt in and trust you.
I love it. I love it, Jeff. And you've done such a great job with Wool & Water, with what you're doing with your extended retail. Let's get into that a little bit more. So it's very interesting, because a lot of companies are thinking about this shopping cart abandonment. They get a customer on their website. The
Yes.
customer goes through the process. They have someone that wants something, but when it gets to the end of it, they can't pull the trigger. They can't buy the item or the service. So let's talk about what your philosophy is at Wool & Water about shopping cart abandonment, and maybe how your extended retail program can assist in that.
What's so interesting about that research report that's going to go out soon is that it's kind of common sense if you and I were just to talk about why people leave an item. They just forgot about it, or maybe they weren't really certain of it. I don't think that most companies realize the scale of this. And of the people who abandoned carts, 54% of it did it solely because they couldn't visualize it in the real world. They couldn't actually take that red tie and see themselves standing in front of a mirror versus this awful 2D image that maybe you can drag a little bit or expand. But surprisingly, the second part, and this is one that a lot of digital marketers will argue kicking and screaming, but the data here does not lie, is how frustratingly hard it is to check out. People forget their sign-ins. We talked earlier about you being taken off this side to that side to this and re-signing in, remembering which brand and tie and everything. It's all about simplicity. So that, frankly, is our philosophy, is that if you can give people confidence, you can give Andy or any of your viewers confidence that this product, whether a car, whether a chocolate box, whether the new suit, if this will work in the real world for you, you are going to close that gap so much more. And just as importantly, if you can do it where every single screen, it does not move, your sign-in information remains there, your preferences are in there, and of course, the ability to buy it, I mean, that's going to close so many of these conversion opportunities that have just been lost out there, frankly.
That's incredible, Jeff. And obviously, Wool & Water, you've got so much expertise to help the clients that are coming to you for your assistance with your new extended retail program. I want to move the conversation to entrepreneurship in just a few moments, but let's talk a little bit more about where you see Wool & Water's sort of sweet spot. We've spoken about car dealers. You know, we gave some examples so people can understand what's happening with the shopping cart and the blue suit and the red tie, and you're going to be getting served up ads with the red tie, I'm sure, and so am I.
For sure.
But let's focus in a little bit. Where is sort of the sweet spots of Wool & Water right now, and where do you see it going in the future?
You know, I think that when we first started, we had a little bit of our sales strategy wrong, candidly. We looked a lot at challenger brands who needed a new story to tell, established companies. I won't necessarily name names, but they were interested, they saw the value, and then after 2 or 3 meetings, no offense to Bob in accounting, but Bob in accounting would suddenly appear and put the kibosh on something. The large enterprise, I think, will be a fast follower opportunity once they realize they're getting left behind. But where we've had tremendous success is more the well-funded startup route. So the companies who have been around for 1, 2, or 3 years have closed Series B, Series C. I mean, they're kindred spirits. They're there to disrupt and change an industry. And when we talk to them about building this in, it doesn't have to go through 17 different layers of the hierarchy. Often it's with the founder themselves who gets just as excited as we do, and things move a lot faster. I'll be honest, I think a lot about that book, The Innovator's Dilemma, and that was something I read in business school and really stuck with me. And I sincerely believe that these larger companies, regardless of industry, even some of the large tech companies, need to focus a little bit more on taking a risk here that is supported by numbers and data versus what we've seen are more comfortable sticking with the tried and the true. Whether it's knowing the exact return of a paid search campaign, knowing the exact return of some kind of customer mailing versus something that is a truly sustained new way of shopping.
That's super interesting. So the larger companies, they're going to be the followers in this, and you're working with super, well-funded, disruptible companies, BC round funded companies. And it makes all the sense in the world because they're excited. They understand the future. And sometimes the bigger companies, they're kind of like looking at the present instead of looking at the future.
Right. And you see this too. I think that in a way it's being validated, if not encouraged, by a lot of the digital transformation noise you see out there. I get, because of course I'm interested in what my competitors are doing, any number of daily or weekly newsletters about digital transformation tips and what's working in this industry and that. And whether it's the largest consulting firms in the world or just somebody in their basement, it is so iterative. It's around. I got one not too long ago that their big idea was to make sure that people shopping online were able to easily pick up at curbside. I mean, these are the ideas that failed retail and failed anyone selling in the physical world when it was needed most.
I hear you. It's really interesting. And talking about that, talking about sort of the risk takers and the disruptors, we always like to have a part of the show, as you know, where we talk about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Because we do have a lot of younger entrepreneurs, and this has been fascinating about what you're doing, and it's phenomenal. And I love the extent of retail and the wool and water. You're right on the cutting edge, and you get to work with disruptors, which must be very fascinating all the time. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. And I know this is something that's dear to your heart. And what we like to ask our successful entrepreneurs on the show, Jeff, is, maybe to give some color about being an entrepreneur. Maybe talk to the younger entrepreneurs that watch the show, and maybe the brand new startup founders that haven't gotten to the B and C rounds yet, or the A rounds. Maybe they're bootstrapping, or maybe they're working on an angel round, but they're trying to figure it out. They're working their way through. And we always find this very interesting to have successful people like you, Jeff, sort of look into the camera and give some input, some information, some motivation to these people. And maybe you could sort of give the way Jeff Bodzewski looks at it, and that would be awesome if you could.
Yeah, it certainly is not a path for everyone. And I liken it to when you're learning how to swim. Eventually you have to let go of the wall and hope that all those lessons have taught you well. And you have to be comfortable working 80 hours a week because you'd rather control your own destiny than working 40 to 50 hours for someone else. It's the definition of high risk, high reward, because if you don't make it happen, there's no one else. That said, I love it. I absolutely love it. This is actually my third go around at being an entrepreneur. One of the things that hopefully has been said enough and reassured enough to prospective entrepreneurs, you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot. You're going to fail spectacularly. And each one of those is a great learning experience. And everything that you take from it, the first thing that I did out of business school was a few of my buddies and I started a record label 10 years ago. And it was a thing to where Britney Spears still follows me on Twitter, but it quickly wasn't a thing because I saw firsthand how differences in vision, differences in goals, and everything among a leadership team can make the most exciting, productive thing explode. So clarity, as we've talked about throughout this, is so key, but specifically in this case, as you're getting other people excited about this, make sure everyone knows what they're getting into and it is focused on the right thing. The second time that I tried this was just your standard digital marketing agency that was more data oriented. And I learned a very valuable lesson that you could be the smartest person in the room. And if you are, frankly, you need a better room, as that saying goes, but you can't do it alone. You just can't. And whether it's the logistics that people point to of HR or paying bills, the reality is if you don't have other people whose input and opinion you really value to kind of steer you away from things, who will stand up to you and go in the right way and who you trust, no, bad bet. You're going to basically talk to yourself and it won't end well. So I think that's key. What we found with Wool and Water, if I was to take one learning from each of those examples so far, is that you never know where the next opportunity is. And you and I have been talking mainly in B2C applications and buying things and apparel and cars, et cetera. But one of the areas that actually has grown the largest for us is energy. And where we didn't necessarily think about the power of this channel to show things that you can't touch and see, financial services, energy, things that are around peace of mind that, again, aren't tangibly there. The ability for this stuff to help clarify that was not when the other partners and I first sat down and we were selling shoes and cars and all the super cool stuff. And it's just really cool to see, as long as you're flexible enough and not just, beholden by some guardrails that, by God, nope, we are just selling shoes. So I think that's a hard part, because often it causes you to have to change your vision, your marketing materials, your 30-second elevator speech, but you have to be flexible. Absolutely.
Jeff, that's great advice for the younger entrepreneurs. It's very interesting. Many, many years ago, when people were, building a company and going out and looking for their seed round or their angel investors, the angel investors would talk to the entrepreneur and take a look at things, and they would make their decision based on the entrepreneur. Now in Silicon Valley and everywhere else, whether it's Chicago, New York, wherever, Latin America, it's all over the world now, Texas, the people are asking, the first question they ask is, tell us about your team. We want to know about your team. And one thing you've done really wonderfully at Wool and Water is you've been able to build a great team to help your organization get to where it needs to go. You've been able to take your initial belief and change it for the better to empower your clients, which is absolutely amazing. There's so much to learn here, Jeff. I'm so excited you came on the show. We could spend a few hours here, but I know you've only sliced out a certain amount of time. You're super busy. And I wanted to thank you so much for kind of bringing us into what's happening at Wool and Water. The extended retail channel is really amazing for your clients. And again, this is right on the cutting edge, right on the cusp. You get to work with amazing disruptors, super cool, amazing technology. You're right on the cutting edge. And again, thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a great topic, one that we're passionate about, and hopefully some of your viewers really found some interesting information here.